Chair here.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Monday, July 8th, 2024 open session meeting for Kent County Public Schools Board of Education meeting. I'd like to call this meeting open and to order. The first item on the agenda is approving the agenda as presented this evening. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Can I ask that in open session, on the consent agenda, can personnel be pulled out for a separate vote from the?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Can we, where would we like to have that right after consent agenda?
Yeah,
I can put it at the bottom of the consent agenda, and you can vote separately.
Yeah, that sounds great, thanks.
Adam, are we okay with that?
As long as you vote to modify the agenda now.
Yeah, I'm asking that, to modify the agenda.
Stream vote to modify the agenda, just like you go to the formal process.
Okay, so
That's fine.
with the motion, if you could make the motion to modify the agenda,
I'd like
please.
to modify the agenda to remove personnel from the consent agenda and have that as a separate agenda item.
Yeah, and then we'll do a separate vote.
Okay.
Can we do that right after the consent agenda?
At the end.
Yeah.
No, we need to vote now to modify the agenda.
I know, but I'm saying,
Right.
like, when we do personnel, can we place that after consent agenda as a separate item? Yes.
I was
As
in
long as
number
we're all
5.
agreed on where it goes.
Yeah.
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 All right, so we have the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Sullivan, motion by Ms. McGee. Any further comments or questions? The motion passes. The modified agenda is approved. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is to move to closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members of this board, Dr. Mary McComas, the superintendent, Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, Adam Constance, legal counsel, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, will move to closed session under general provisions, Article 3-305B. And the topic under 3-305B1 is the applicants for new hires, resignations, volunteers, transfers, extra pay, extra duty, and any other personnel matters is the topic. The reason that this is in closed session is that public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contain sensitive personal and biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. The second topic, under 3-103A1I, is an administrative function, review findings and recommendations of ethics panel in response to complaint, administration of ethics, policy procedure in response to ethics panel's findings and recommendations. The reason for the closed session discussion of this topic is the substance of discussion is considered administrative function outside the scope of the Open Meetings Act, but is discussed during an otherwise closed session pursuant to 3-104. With that being said, the administration is recommending approval to move to closed session. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rhodes has the second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The time is 5:34, and we will be back in this room at approximately 6:30. session meeting for Monday, July 8th, 2024. This is a Kent County Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Welcome to each of you. I just want to make a note that prior to going into closed session, the agenda was amended to pull out 4B, personnel actions, out of consent agenda and be placed right after. So we will be conducting a separate vote on that outside of the consent agenda. I just wanted to make sure that all of you were aware. The first item, Section 3A, is to report on closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members of this board, Dr. Mary McComas, the superintendent, Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, Adam Constas, legal counsel, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, met in closed session under general provisions Article 3-305B. The first citation was 3-305B1. The topic was that applicants for new hires, resignations, volunteers, transfers, extra pay, extra duty, and any other personnel matters. The reason for this being in closed session, is that public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contain sensitive personal and biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. The second citation was 3-103A1I. The topic was an administrative function topic. It was review findings and recommendations of ethics panel in response to complaint and administration of ethics policy procedure in response to ethics panel findings and recommendations. The reason this was in closed session was the substance of discussion is considered administrative function outside the scope of the Open Meetings Act, but is discussed during an otherwise closed session pursuant to 3-104. This session was for information and discussion purposes only. No action was taken. Personnel actions will be voted upon by this board, as I mentioned, after consent agenda as a separate item. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, the next item on the agenda is administration is seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda, subtracting, minusing, taking out personnel actions. Do we have a motion to, actually, Mr. Hushin, did you want to, I saw you ready to come up. Do you want to wait?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McGee has a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing no comments or questions, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. Mr. Hushin, personnel.
Thank you, President Getz, Dr. McComas, school board members. Each month, the board receives a report of stated personnel actions that are discussed in closed session. Then a vote is held out here in open session. With that said, the administration recommends approval of those stated personnel actions.
Thank you, Mr. Hushin. As Mr. Hushin just mentioned, the administration recommending approval of the stated personnel actions. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Dorsey has a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Hushin.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public participation. No? Okay, thank you, Ms. Gale. All right, Dr. McComas.
Woohoo! Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm excited to share that today we launched our summer learning program, serving students from preschool through high school. We have 128 students enrolled, and we look forward to supporting their learning and growing over the next 4 weeks of the summer. I also want to highlight that our summer meals program is well underway in providing free meals to our students and their families so that their families have continuous support throughout the summer. And I especially want to thank all of our food service employees who routinely go above and beyond to ensure that our children are nourished on a daily basis. Looking forward, July 25th, our high school sports orientation will be run, and I also want to highlight that for our athletes, Chaptank Community Health System Partnership will provide free physicals to make sure that all students have access to that, for which we are very appreciative of their partnership. Additionally, during the week of July 29th to August 1st, our Makerspace Camp will be held, cultivating ingenuity and creativity for our students, and I look forward to visiting and seeing all the inventions of our students. I also want to add that I had the pleasure of participating in local events recently, such as the Rock Hall 4th of July Parade, woohoo, and the Miss Rock Hall pageant. And I particularly want to thank Mayor James Cook for his thoughtfulness to invite me to these events as an opportunity to get to meet the community. And the truth is, I was frankly very inspired by the whole celebration in the community, and I look forward to the upcoming fall festivals, I understand, and Veterans Day parades. Again, thank you to Mayor James Cook for the invitation. Additionally, I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Fithian and Mr. Nickerson, our commissioners, and Sheriff Hickman, as well as Delegate Rentz on Saturday. And I naturally look forward to getting to know them and working with them on behalf of our community. I just want to share with everyone, I'm in the process of scheduling many individual and group meetings with community leaders and organizations, and I am enjoying, and I look forward to learning and listening more from our community leaders about where we are as a community and people's vision and aspirations for the future of our work together. And then lastly, I just want to thank the Board of Education and the KCPS team who have given me a tremendously warm welcome in the last 4 days in the new opportunity here. So I'll conclude with that. So thank you, everyone, for helping me get off to a great start. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. McComas. Okay, we'll move into board discussion. Ms. Dorsey? Okay. Ms. McGee?
I don't have anything other than I just want to say welcome to Dr. McComas, and I have to smile because she was sitting right in the middle of the Rock Hall Alumni Association in the parade, so there's this sea of orange. Didn't you get the memo?
I had red, white, and blue. I had a red, white, and blue memo going.
But it wasn't.
Baysiders.
But yeah, she had pom-poms in both hands, so I sent her a picture and I said, I think this photo should go under the superintendent's page on the Kent County Public Schools website. But anyhow, it made me smile to see her there, so welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
I just want to give a nice welcome to Dr. McComas.
Thank you.
It's nice seeing you in the parade last weekend. It was a little warm, there was a lot of kids, but that's one of the best hometown parades I've ever seen. It's all
Agreed.
Americana. So I have something I want to leave with everyone today. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 goes this way. It's just something to read. I don't want to go over the whole thing. And it goes,
Thank you.
who runs the best U.S. schools? It may be the Defense Department. And Dr. McComas, since you are a captain in the Army, this might resonate with you, and I'm hoping that our schools can just go right to the top as being one of the best schools in the state of Maryland, our systems, because we have the potential. So I thought you'd like this, and
Thank you.
that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes? Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you. Like many of our board members, I was able to attend the 8th grade promotion ceremony at Kent County Middle School on June 11th, and it was really great to see all of the families there. We are very fortunate that at all of our sort of graduation ceremonies, we're standing room only. I would love to see the same thing at our PTA meetings, so it's never too early or too late to join your PTA. And on June 17th, I attended the Eastern Shore Maryland Education Consortium Conference, also known as ESMEC, with most of our board and our new superintendent. And it was great to hear from our new state superintendent, members of the Blueprint Accountability and Implementation Board, and other board members and superintendents from across the Eastern Shore. We share the same hurdles when it comes to school funding, but everyone is working hard to do the best for all our students. I had the opportunity to grab coffee with Alden, our new SMOB. She was unable to attend tonight, but will be here at our August meeting, and I look forward to her participation and perspective. During her first week at KCPS, Dr. McComas invited all of the board members to meet with her individually to talk about our goals and expectations, and I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I left our meeting feeling excited about our new partnership and confident in your understanding of the needs of our students, schools, and community. And I saw that you had participated in a number of events at Rock Hall this month, so I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
A question was asked in a group on Facebook recently about the status of the KCMS construction project. I explained that the county has approved funding for the design portion of the project, and the state has also set aside funding. I also explained about the legislation that was written last session to decrease the local share and how that legislation did not pass. We are currently still in talks with our delegates to rewrite the legislation in the hopes that it will pass this session. A show of support for the project by the community would be extremely helpful. I'll make a note to announce when and how to submit your support to the state. Also, if I could ask that we just provide a quick update on the KCMS project page of the KCPS website, just so people know that it is ongoing, including maybe a link to the FY25 capital improvement plan submission, which includes a tentative timeline. And last but not least, today is my husband's birthday. I want to thank him for being so understanding about all of the additional meetings that have been taking place over the last few months, and I'll be home as soon as I can. Happy birthday, Mark. Thank you, everybody.
Happy birthday.
We're waving to them.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I just have very little to add. Just again, Dr. McComas, thank you. You jumped right in last Monday, and it was very nice to have, as Ms. Sullivan mentioned, having those one-on-ones with you to kind of get in that space. And then the pictures were flying on 4th of July with you in the middle of the group and your hand waving and stuff, so it was kind of cool to see that. It wasn't kind of, it was great to see that. So thank you for jumping right in and working with our folks. So also, I see this summer was supposed to be a time for rest. I see Ms. Jacomowitz has a wing that's kind of up, so I hope she's okay. I just wanted to say I hope everyone's enjoying their time. I know there's a lot of work still going on, but just take the time to just breathe. The schools, everyone just, and I would be remiss in saying or offering thanks to our community partnerships continues to be strong. And it just blows me away that we couldn't do without, and sometimes we don't bring attention to that. So I just want to thank all the community partners for what they do as well to help our students. So greatly appreciate it. Okay, we'll move into administrative services. Ms. Stewart, this might be a record for your, you're used to like 10:10 at night, so this is incredible.
This is very rewarding. I'll take it for now. So good evening, President Getz, members of the board, Dr. McComas. We're going to go over the monthly financial report. Essentially, this is preliminary because it combines from July 1 to current. Please keep in mind, as I go through, we're in the process of preparing for our audit. We still have recodes that we have to do with the grants, those fixed charges, the pension, FICA, healthcare that the grant covers. We do that at the end, as well as indirect costs. So we'll start with the revenues. Fund 1, we have received about $38.9 million. Fund 3, which is our school construction, about $2.3 million. Fund 5, $1.5 million, that's our food service, and nothing for our Fund 7, which brings us to a preliminary total for cash receipts of $42,879,752.81. As you will see here with our current expense fund, overall 92% is showing that we have expended, but there's a couple things I need to note here. With our current expense fund, we have concentration, poverty, and TSI that is unrestricted as funding, but restricted for use. So essentially, we are technically not at 22.6 because that funding source we have to pull out, which we do keep it separate when we do our budgeting. So the overages that you see, I don't believe there would be a surprise to anyone. Keep in mind that when we did our 24 budget, we cut off the top $700,000. 500 came from fixed charges, 200 came from special education. We don't anticipate that we will have a deficit. We anticipate we may have to use out of the $800,000 that we estimated we would need to use to fund 24. We may have to use $200,000 or $300,000 of that, but that's still pending giving our grant recodes. Here with our school construction, that pretty much finalizes us for the year, this $1.1 million. That's just the things where we needed for the KCMS feasibility study and then the KCHS roof project. And then we have our food service. To note, we do have a fund balance in our food service that we do have to bring down. This still gives us, even though we're over 215,000, we still have a fund balance probably about a little over 100 grand, I'm estimating. But this doesn't include, we are still waiting on our June claims, so that fund balance might be a bit higher, but we do have plans because at Garnett, we need to get fixed I believe it's the serving line. So we still have some pending items that we need for food service, but for the most part, we were able to get those items processed for this year to go down our fund balance. And then our restricted funds, this is actually going to be higher when we come to finalize, because again, like I said, we have to do our recodes, any accruals for summer pay, and so forth. So that gives you a overview of that. And then the last page that kind of just gives you a diagram, comparison receipts to expenditures for all funds. Any questions?
This was for information purposes only, as Ms. Stewart has just asked. Are there any questions by the board members for this portion?
Yeah, I have a question just in general. How do you get more than 100% of anything?
Because that essentially is saying that you went over budget. So with
Okay.
food service, we essentially expended more than what we had, but we really
Well, the
didn't.
last thing I was looking at was textbooks and supplies at 123% on the next to last
Hold
slide.
on.
Four items down.
For which one?
I'm on the next to last slide on the,
You're talking about the restricted funds?
Yeah.
Essentially, that could be attributed to just recoding or miscoding. So essentially, if there may be a charge that in restricted funds that was supposed to be textbook and supplies, but not necessarily budget, or the budget allocation was not updated. So that can vary and happen sometimes.
okay.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Stewart, appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the KCHS Co-Ag Grant Approval.
All right, so administration is requesting board approval for the COAG grant. As you all are aware, the Kent County Health Department has received grant funding that has assisted us with nursing services. They are anticipating on receiving this funding again in the amount of $38,203, and this will assist us with funding for our nursing services. So administration is requesting board approval for the Kent County Health Department COAG grant.
Okay, as Ms. Stewart mentioned, this is an action item. They are requesting approval for this grant. Do we have a motion to approve the COAG grant from Kent County Health Department?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rhodes. Any further comments or questions? Not hearing any. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. The grant is approved. Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is for information only, and this is the review of policy DB, annual budget. Ms. Stewart.
All right, so this is the policy DB, which is the annual budget. Essentially, just letting us know what the policy just basically states what the annual budget is and how the superintendent goes about with preparing for the annual budget and preparing it to the Board of Education. This is up to date. There were no changes that are needed, but we are bringing it to the board because I think the last time it's been reviewed was in 2001. So this is just for first review.
Very good, and this will be voted upon at the next meeting.
I have just a question about the policy and whether or not this is something that even needs to be in the policy. Would it be possible to include something like a line item expenditure report from the previous fiscal year will be made available to the board upon request? And it could be, I mean, it doesn't have to be a paper copy because I imagine it's a phone book. But, and again, I don't know if that needs to be part of the policy, but it is something that I'd be interested in seeing.
Okay, I believe that essentially lies with the superintendent. Most of the time, if it's something like that, I'm able to provide that information, then she is able to relay that. So I would just defer that to Dr. McComas.
Okay, I'll do that.
But if that's any time that that's needed, you know.
Thank you.
So
anytime.
Ms. Sullivan, just to be clear, you're asking for that to be included?
Yes, if it would need to be included, just because I think that it's a good practice for us to be able to see the line item expenditures.
No doubt, yeah, I didn't know.
But I don't know if it needs to be part of the policy, was kind of my
Yeah.
question, so I was kind of putting that out
Okay.
to the board.
Great. Yeah, I mean, if we remember,
Right.
you know, that to
That's
get
the
it lined,
thing.
that's the thing, you know?
Yeah, but if we make it part of the policy, then it becomes, this is what we do each year at this time.
Adam, is there anything, I mean, this is our policy, there's nothing listed in
Komar?
COMAR or anything that would not allow us to do that, other than it's the right thing to do.
Correct. So, this policy generally states the general overview of what's encapsulated in Title V of the education article, which deals with finance and budgets. And you'll see some more detailed, more specific policies coming up. But yeah, that sort of request is certainly okay, permissible, and could be accomplished outside of a policy if you wanted as well.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, the next item is the review of policy DBA budgeting system. Ms. Stewart?
So the policy DBA budgeting system, the changes that we made to that was just to reflect the current language that is in the annotated code of Maryland Article Education Title V, 5-1. All other information remains the same in regards to our budgeting system, but you will see here the information that's actually updated here for 5-101 for the annual school budget is literally just taken from the annotated Maryland State Code of Education,
So 5 pages removed and 3 pages cleaned up.
essentially. And I believe these changes, I can't remember what Adam said, the change.
The way it looked before was literally just like 5101 lists the different budget categories, and what was in place before was just an old version of that statute, so it just needs to be updated to reflect the current version. It doesn't change all that much. Ms. Stewart and I were looking, since the last time this policy had been reviewed, it had only changed a few times, and that was decades ago. So
Yeah.
it's not like this is something that has to be revised all the time, but the Stewart is
Was there
rightly so going through these.
any change needed to the policy to accommodate the new legislation about how the budget is presented to local government?
So I think that's addressed in a different policy, which is coming up.
Okay.
Either next or
If-
the one after.
The one after.
One after.
One after, okay.
Okay, so policy DBA, budgeting system, was for information only as well. Are there any additional questions on that policy? Okay. The next policy is policy DBB, fiscal year. This is also for information only. Ms. Stewart?
Yes, and with this policy, there were no changes. It's just, for review purposes, it's just stating that we do have a fiscal year, and that fiscal year is established from July 1 to June 30th.
I'm assuming there's no questions on that. Thank you. Okay, the next policy for review, information only, is policy DBC, budget deadlines.
So with policy DBC, with the budget deadlines, the change was made, the change that was made was, again, according to the Maryland Code annotated education 5-102. Essentially, I hear what you're saying, Ms. Sullivan, as far as with the commissioners, but this is in relation to when we need to submit the budget to the superintendent after we received approval. I'm not sure if that's something, again, I can discuss with Dr. McComas to see if we need to put in there of how we need to present the budget, but to be honest, outside of that everything has to be broken down based on the blueprint funding sources, there's no real stipulation as far as
A requirement
like
for
a
that.
granular. I mean, if anyone asks, just like, you asked before, like if you wanted to see line by line or detail, that's that's not hard to provide, but if that's something that, you as a board decided you want to put in here, I don't believe that would be a problem.
If I would just may offer something and I certainly will work with our team on this, but I'm thinking we need to establish and publish what those procedures are, right? So that there's sort of policy and there's operational procedures. And what I hear you asking for are things that could very easily be encoded in procedures
Procedure.
and then published as procedures, right? So that keeps us all honest too. We say this is the process we want to use, and then this is where and of course, as new things come up in legislation, we can adjust procedures that, the policy may be broad enough, a universal umbrella, and then the procedures can be adjusted based on changes in legislation. Something to consider.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, this is for information only. Are there any comments regarding this?
We currently do this, though. We have copies of the budget that we have on the website, and also when we do the budget presentation, we usually have copies of that here for attendees as well.
Yes, and then midway, depending on the turnaround, between January and February, I do come to present a projection for year end. So that's kind of where you get into the nuts and bolts, different potential for we may be overexpended here, what are we those adjustments that will be needed. So, but at request, at any time, just ask me, and I will do my best to work with you on that.
Great, thank you.
Anytime.
Okay. That was for information purposes only. Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Appreciate that. The next section is public participation. Ms. Gale? Okay. Notification of next meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education of Kent County will be held on Monday, August 12th, 2024, and the time has changed. It will be beginning at 5 p.m. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going to closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 p.m. Both meetings will be located at the administration building in the boardroom, this room, located at 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rock Hall, Maryland, 21661. The last item on the agenda for tonight is to adjourn. The administration is recommending approval to adjourn this meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Sullivan has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rhodes has a second. Any further comments? I was going to make a comment, but I'm not going to. Not hearing any more, we'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.